Barigalust! Welcome to the AWWA Armenian Voices, where Armenian stories live, breathe, and are passed on. In each episode, you'll hear real Armenian voices sharing personal stories about culture, family, and identity. Stories that help us stay connected to who we are and where we come from. This week's stories are all about the power of love. We hope you enjoy this episode, brought to you by the Armenian Women's Welfare Association, AWWA, where our mission since 1915 has been to honor, uplift, and care for our elders, advocate for their voices, and honor Armenian heritage.
Blessings, community. My name is Carla Halafian. I'm an energy healing artist, mostly known for being a coffee reading master. I am a mystic mother of 2 girls and 2 cats, and I work in development in the nonprofit sector. So currently I work at an equine assisted therapy ranch in Magnolia, Texas, but I've only been in Texas for a couple of years now. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. In my younger years, grew up mostly in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, that is, because there's a Bay Area in Texas and it's not anything like the Bay Area in California. So I just need to distinguish that immediately. And I moved to Armenia for a couple of years, went back to LA for about 7 years, and made my way here with my family. I'm extremely passionate about preserving ancient Armenian healing modalities, rituals, ceremonies, rites, and I have a great emphasis on the art of coffee readings. And it's something that has always been a part of my life, in my family. It's been passed down to me, and I just love it so much. I think it's so important to not only know our roots and where we come from and where a lot of our practices come from, and also balancing that with living in this modern age, modern society with different resources, different tools than our ancestors had. So it is a balancing act, and I try my best to preserve all while move it forward, if that makes sense. And as somebody who is adamant on healing in many, many ways and forms that it comes, I also think it's important for people to be in touch with their intuition and working in healing in ways that work uniquely as well. So I think I have an interesting background in my own healing journey, my own spiritual journey, and also the practices that I incorporate in my day-to-day life that work for me, that are just so precious for me and my family and my practice as well. There are a few ways that I share some of the knowledge that I feel called to share with my community. And there are threefold. One is through my website, The Coffee Mystic. It's a work in progress. It's a place where people can, read about me, about my services, how to contact me, how to book a session. But I also have a blog on there, and my Substack is on there, and I love to write. I probably should have mentioned that before, but writing is my first love of craft. If I could put it in that way, I feel like writing is extremely healing and spiritual, and it's always been a huge part of my life. But I do share quite a bit in writing and on my Substack. But I do also have my Instagram page, ani.vibes. And I run a page called Mer Tachar, meaning our temple. And that is a resource page that shares ancient Armenian knowledge, interesting historical archives, some musings and featuring other Armenian healers as well. And as you already can hear, I do have quite a lot that I'm doing. And so whatever I do post in general is at will and at capacity. If I'm able to do it, I do it. If I'm not, I am hermiting or I'm busy running around after my kids. So, but that's the beauty about being Armenian, is having this innate response in creativity to the world. You know, we're extremely resourceful. I believe that we inherit just divine resourcefulness from our ancestors, you know, very sharp intuition, because you need intuition to survive, instincts. And of course, we inherit just a ton of trauma. And I think that's talked about quite a bit. And I think that there's great resources around epigenetics and how to work with those traumas that we inherit and that we witnessed firsthand, and that some of us are still experiencing within our culture, within our countries. But being someone who grew up in the diaspora as an Armenian American, going from a robust Los Angeles community to a smaller community in the San Francisco Bay Area, but I would say still fairly robust. There was a lot of beautiful community there too. And I think one thing that stands out is anytime an Armenian moves anywhere, we look for other Armenians. That's the first thing. When you move somewhere new, you just look for other Armenians. And it's like that sense of like relief. It's that sense of home, even though none of us are ever really home. On a side note, I stopped searching for quote unquote home, because I think being a diaspora, it's like our ancestral lands are not really there anymore. And yes, we have Armenia, and I love Armenia, and I think it's really, really incredibly important to go there, to make connections there, to be a bridge to there. But my family also did not experience, you know, the Soviet Union, the post-Soviet Union. We experienced Armenia as, post-Soviet visitors reconnecting with the land that's left. And I think that's very special in that reconnection. And I do feel like there's a lot of divine energy healing in the land itself. And of course, there are ancestral roots there. They're all over, right? Western Armenia, Artsakh, and even the region of Garadagh and Nakhichevan, which a heavy part of my ancestry is from Nakhichevan. But that being said, when we look for each other, but if we're always chasing home, we may never be satisfied of where we live. And accepting that we just make the best of what we can, what we have at any given place and point in our life is the best that we can do. Because I don't know if we ever truly know the full sense of home, because we're not, we're not harvesting on the lands of our ancestors that we're harvesting. I have ancestors. My grandmother was from Van in Western Armenia, and she survived the genocide. They escaped. And, before they escaped, they were there for, since Urartu, probably even before that, So it's like, because I'm not living the way they lived, because we weren't there in this life, in this form, I think it's just like, where is home? So I think Armenians have this sense of searching. I guess it was Parjanov that says, We're searching for ourselves and each other, right? And that's what we did. That's what we do. And I have a really cool story, actually. When we did move to the Bay Area in 1996, we were warmly invited by this lovely family for their house parties all the time. And it was like a bunch of parents, bunch of kids, food, you name it. And going from Los Angeles, where like I have like 15 cousins on my mom's side alone, right? Not even counting like their kids and so forth. Being with family all the time, the whole world, my world in LA was so Armenian growing up as a kid. And so to go from there to the Bay Area where, you know, it's obviously also very diverse, but the community is spread out, right? Not everyone's in the same neighborhoods. So we were invited by this warm and loving family constantly at their house for parties. It was just a really nice place to connect. And I've always connected to the daughter. She's just really, really just different, you know, like me. It was like we were both very different. And I just can't explain, like, I know she had this spiritual gift about her, and I felt that same way about myself, right? She was a little older and, you know, I admired her. Anyways, my mom was in their hallway one day and sees an old photograph of her mother, meaning my grandmother, and her aunt on her aunt's wedding day in her wedding dress in this photo, right? And it's in Barskasan in Iran because, you know, my mom's side is Barskahai. You know, from Nakhichevan, they were exiled to Peria in Iran. It's an agrarian village. Mostly Armenians were also placed there together and then made their way to Esfahan and then Tehran and then eventually, you know, to Los Angeles, right? And then Bay Area. That was my mom's route. But anyways, she's staring at this photo, just shocked. And she just goes up to her friend. She's like, excuse me, like, where did you get this photo? Why do you have this photo? Like, what's going on? And so her friend is like, oh, well, my mother is in that photo. And she was behind the bride. And the bride is her cousin. And my mom's like, but that's my aunt. And so, turns out her friend, and my mom were second cousins. And me and her daughter are friends and third cousins. And so you have not only our grandmas who were cousins, they were best friends. And then my mom and her friend were very, very close. And now me and her are close. So we have this like 3 generations of this closeness that is just, I mean, just magnetic. You know, they say Aruna Kashuma, like the blood pulls you. And it was just so amazing. And we still celebrate that to this day. We're still very close. So I think that was a cool story to tell. But growing up in the Bay Area in general, I loved it. I loved growing up there. It was so diverse. It was just this multicultural quilt. You know, there wasn't a lot of Armenians in this, you know, in my school and everything. However, I liked being the one Armenian to like teach others about my culture and also to learn about others' culture and to continue to build that bridge. So that was really special. Although I did my freshman year, the first class, the first period, my desk had the name Ani carved into it. And I know who that was. There was one other Ani that went to my high school prior to me, and I happened to get that desk, which was a trip. So I just, yeah, I'm glad the teacher didn't notice, so he wouldn't try to blame me and that I wouldn't get in trouble for it. When I had reached my mid-20s, I think I was 26 when I moved to Armenia. Yeah. My life in the Bay Area was really fantastical. I have stories for days that I will just always take with me. But when I did reach my mid-20s, I slowly started to kind of lose meaning in everything I was doing. I knew I loved the healing arts. At the time, I was in media and also private events, and I just was searching for something deeper, searching to be really in touch with my roots in a different way. And I decided to actually go to Armenia to volunteer and spend some time there, spend some time with the land. Like, I had been there when I was a teen twice on family trips, and they were very, very impactful for me spiritually in many, many ways. And I craved that again, and I was old enough to go on my own. You know, I had my own money. I had my own, things that I could set up for myself out there. And I actually didn't really plan on living there. I just planned on volunteering there. But by the time I did get there, I loved it. And I'm like, whoa, I'm staying. And then obviously I fell in love with my husband, stayed longer, got a job there. I worked for AUA, the American University of Armenia, and I had different freelance jobs in the nonprofit sector with an emphasis on cultural programming and also documentary filmmaking. That was something that I will always encourage people to do if they have the chance and resource to go, because that changed my life, and it changed my entire trajectory of my career. It changed everything for me. And I'm so glad I did it. It was such a crazy turning point in my life that really catapulted me into understanding what the preservation really means and what it was that I was preserving. Yes, my family stories, but so much of family story was fleeing, was, starting over here, starting over there. And, less and less gets kept over time. And it's the oral tradition that sticks, in which I'm pretty adamant about preserving. But I wanted to see what they're doing in Armenia, in the actual country, in terms of different healing modalities too. And it was just like mind-blowing and amazing. I also improved my language skills like exponentially, if I can put it that way, because in Persian Armenian dialect, it's very close to the Eastern Armenian. It is Eastern Armenian technically, but in Armenia itself, you have different dialects within the country. And then my husband is from Syria, so he has a Western Armenian accent and dialect. So I actually ended up learning that complete dialect altogether, in which I am glad I learned it, and that my kids are speaking both. Or one of them's a baby; she doesn't speak yet, but she will very soon. And we only speak to the kids in Armenian only. We do not speak to them in English. And so Western Armenian is an endangered language because it's only being taught in the diaspora, right? So it's very, very important to preserve language as culture as well. And I can't emphasize enough that it's the language that holds spiritual keys too. The language is so important. There's so much psychic connection in the language. And I have a hard time elaborating on this without elaborating it in Armenian, right? But I'll give like one quick example of how language and nature and understanding of our world through how we speak to each other is impactful on our spirit, right? So, if you look at the word sun, arev, right? Barev, the greeting has the word sun in it, right? The hello even has a sun in it. Say something, garevora, something is important. It's as important as the matter of the sun, right? So you just have like so many of these little beautiful moments, aha moments within the language when you really start to dissect it. And I don't think it's ever too late to learn or at least start studying the words and the etymologies of Armenian words, because it's extremely fascinating and it's never ending. It's just so magical. And a lot of what I do in my coffee reading practice is preserving the symbolism through the readings as they come through. The symbols are keys to more intuitive information, but it also shows us what was significant enough in the culture to pass down. And I know a lot of the symbolism that you would see in a coffee cup is also very connected and tied to the symbolism of dream work. Dream work is very important in the Armenian culture, and it's something that is probably one of the first experiences that I've had in my life where I knew I had something was through the realm of dreams, through the visitations I would have in my dreams from passed on relatives, aside from just seeing and feeling energy in different ways. But it was really through the dream symbolism and the dream world itself as well that's highly embraced by our people. And what I love about Armenia itself is the entire country is embedded with symbolism. It's carved onto the stones everywhere, not only in the monasteries and temple, but also just, it'll be like, oh, this is the post office. And you look at the arches in the post office and like there's this beautiful symbolism weaved in and out in this glorious sacred geometry that's just all over right there. So it also brings a glimpse of, again, what was significant to our people that had made it this far, right? What I love about Armenians is when you meet one, you'll know right away. They will tell you. And as a whole, I do believe that we are intuitive as a people. We do have these wonderful inherited gifts of just philanthropy, innovation, creation, and I'm proud to be part of it. I want to thank all of you for listening and the Armenian Women's Welfare Association for having me. What an honor, and blessings to you all.
Thank you for listening to our podcast today. We hope today's episode offered insight into the Armenian experience. To explore more resources or make a donation to help further our mission, please visit www.awwainc.org. That's www.awwainc.org. Your support makes a lasting difference.